Hi, this is Tom Power. I host Q on CBC Radio, and I want to tell you about our new podcast, The Q Interview. It's a chance for you to hear some of our favorite conversations, but on this podcast, we'll go a little deeper, maybe a little longer. Sometimes you'll hear these conversations before they go on the radio, and sometimes you'll hear things you won't have heard on the radio, like when Dave Grohl told me he was thinking of moving to Newfoundland, or when Barbara Streisand told me the real reasons she doesn't do too many interviews. You can subscribe to The Q Interview wherever you get your podcasts.
This is a CBC podcast.
For a nice guy, John Morris is just about as intense as they make him. The man curls like it's a blood feud. It's a will to win that even he doesn't understand. Maybe it's genetic. Morrises have been competing in Briers since 1933. We'll try to puzzle through Johnny Mo's wiring, but meantime, with 2 Olympic golds under his broom, Morris is sliding into a brand new role on Kevin Koe's team. It's Player's Own Voice. I'm Anastasia Busas. Buddy, I am so grateful that you have sat down to chat with me. It has been way too long.
Yeah, it's been a couple years. You're living in the T-Dot, and I'm still living the dream out here out west. So it's hard to cross paths with you.
I know, but every time we see each other, it feels like there's been no time passed.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's the good thing with athletes and good friends is that, you know, if you don't see each other I have friends like that back home in Ottawa, you know, within minutes, you're right back into conversations you probably had 10 years ago. So
it is true. So I was struggling to figure out the focus that I wanted to go with you. And so, of course, I called our mutual very good friend, Ben Hebert, biggest pigeon in all of the Olympics.
Heck yeah.
I don't want to spill any secrets, but he thinks you're a pretty damn good person and a pretty good curler. But he goes, Anastasia, what you don't understand, from 2006 to 2010, we put together a super team. Kevin Martin, Mark Kennedy, myself, Johnny Mo, we had one goal, and that was to win the Olympics. Every single day. He's like, I could tell you what John and I did every day. We'd wake up, we'd go to the gym, lift a few pounds, throw a few rocks, and then we'd go tan because you got to be tan for TV.
Well, for the record, let's just put it this. Benny Heaves hit the tanning salon a little bit more than I did. That was right when HD was coming into full effect on TV. So Benny wanted to make sure we were looking good. I think we were both single at the time. So, yeah.
Well, you know what they say, if you can't tone it, you tan it. And he seemed to buy into that.
Nice.
You went with the goal of winning the Olympics in 2010, and you guys did. The minute after you realized you won that gold medal, what did you do?
Well, the minute after, I was getting the old tap on the shoulder saying, you got to go and take a pee test from WADA. So, yeah, I know you've been there before. And all you want to do is celebrate. And unfortunately, you get a guy to follow you around for an hour. So besides that, I think at that point, you're so elated that it doesn't matter what's going on. You're going to be happy about anything. What I remember from that moment, a few things. That was the first team I was on where all 4 of us were 100% committed to each other and winning gold for Canada. And that was a 4-year process. And we put everything we had into it. And that's what can happen when you have a team like that. And it was, we came from all different backgrounds. Ben was, a young gung-ho fella out of Saskatchewan. We had the old bear who was kind of, almost like our father figure in some ways. And Mark and I were kind of cut from the same jib, even though we're from different parts of the country. But we all had a common goal. And that was what was so special about that. You asked the question, what did you do, right after? Well, first of all, that night I did one of my most favorite interviews I've ever done. And that's doing the famous interview with Brian Williams. And you know, obviously when you're getting interviewed by Brian Williams, you know you've done something pretty special. And obviously in 2010, our team had reached that, you know, that pinnacle. And so that was pretty cool. And I have to say, I have nothing but fond memories. You know, when you play with a team I think we played together for 7 years, there's obviously some ups and some downs and some great moments and some moments that maybe you're not super proud of. But with that team, there's a lot more moments that we were proud of. We made some really special things happen. And, you know, I really look back on that team and that moment particular in 2010 with some really fond memories.
Gold medalists and Olympic champions, Team Canada.
You guys also became the most loved Canadian athletes within the Canadian Olympic team, I think.
I know that, you know, hanging out with some other athletes, they're so, you know, they train 8 to 10 hours a day. They're so intense and focused that, you know, sometimes you don't get a, hey, how's it going? And what's going on? Like, you know, you don't kind of have that same camaraderie just because they're so focused. And we respect that as curlers. You know, that's something that, you know, whatever you got to do to get focused and sharp and prepared for that event. But as curlers, you know, we felt like, okay, now that we've made the Olympics, because the pressure's on, and it's so hard to win Canada to go to the Olympics as a curler. Okay. So once you win that, it's like, all right, like, okay, now you can take a big kind of sigh of relief. And it's like, okay, now let's really enjoy this ride, you know? So those 2 months leading up where we got to meet a lot of other athletes, I know we've trained with a few of them over at WinSport over the years. And, you know, I that's something we just, I don't know, I think it's in our DNA as curlers is to be social. Like we were playing ping pong with Marc-Andre Fleury and Shea Weber and Sidney Crosby. And, you know, I met Jesse Lumsden for the first time at those Olympics. He was actually over here the other night. We still bow hunt together in the Rocky Mountains out here, and we're still good friends to this day. So, you know, it's something that I think goes with the territory with us as curlers.
I want to get to the progress of, you know, 10 years down the road, but let's continue on. Just dissect the next 4 years after 2010, because you guys became genuinely quite famous. I mean, you were superstars. And I can't imagine that fame was easy to maneuver.
It was like a whirlwind, you know. There were so many awesome things. Like we got to, you know, we definitely got the red carpet rolled out for us at different events and charity events, and you know, that was really awesome. Like those experiences were great. It's so hard to remember that summer because it felt like as soon as you got home, you were off to the next great thing that someone was offering you. And so that was kind of cool. But at the same time, I wish I had almost documented it or videoed some of it, because it's gone, you know, a lot of it is just lost in the chaos of that, you know, of the summer after winning gold. But, you know, some really good things came of it. I remember having an impact on so many people's life. That was the first time when you realize as an athlete how much impact you can have on someone, especially the younger generation. And that was pretty cool. I remember going to schools in Chestermere and, you know, everyone knowing who I was and having Johnny Moe signs and you know, knowing that my specific cheer that only kind of my inner circle kind of knew before the Olympics. And that really is what hit home with me. But moving forward from that, for me, I've always, and I think for many athletes, you always have to find motivation, you know, to stay on top and to be, you know, at your peak performance. And as much as we were so driven to begin with, and so that we still rode that high, and we're still driven to some extent those next few years. But it's so hard to find motivation when you're at the top, when everyone's kind of chomping at the bit to get to you. And I feel like the level of curling over the next few years started really rising in Canada with the men's teams. And right now, if you look at our depth in Canada, we have like 6 back then it was probably our team and Glenn Howard we faced off on about 3 or 4 major finals. So those were the 2 teams that were really at the top. Okay, and now you have about 6 teams, men's teams in Canada, where honestly, if you had 6 different Olympic trials or 6 different Briers, you might have 6 different winners. That's how much depth we have. And they're all at I would say, the caliber that we were pretty much at with the Kevin Martin team. So I don't know if it was that team that we were on in 2010 that really helped raise that bar, but it is it's a very big challenge to win Canada now and kind of where it's at. And, so times are different. It's not like we could just put that team together again and roll over everyone again. That's not how it would go. The toughest part for me, what had happened about 3 years after that, we were going through a few issues as a team. One was motivation, maybe a bit of complacency. Kevin Martin had a bit of an injury. He had a hernia. We weren't winning as much as we were used to. And we were kind of thinking like, what has to be done to fix this? And for me personally, I felt like I'm a very passionate, I'm a very passionate, kind of driven player. And I feel like I was losing that passion and I was losing my soul a bit. I just didn't have that drive. I don't like curling, or I don't like playing any sport if I'm not really into it and really my soul is into the game. And I was at a stage where I didn't feel that. I had befriended another guy through the years I'm playing on tour by the name of Carter Rycroft. I don't know if you know Carter, but he was at the 2002 Olympics with Kevin Martin. He was a young fellow on that team. And he said that sometimes teams just run their course.
Yeah. And
you kind of know that in your gut when a team's run its course. And at the time, that's what I was feeling. And I'm not sure if you know what happened, but we ended up 3 years later breaking up. I went, I felt it was in our best interest for the team. It was in the best interest for the team if I didn't play anymore and joined a different team.
That's a dark place, though, when you're starting to question if you have the motivation or love to keep going. So, I mean, was it just in your gut, or what did you do to kind of get clarity on where you stood, not necessarily just with the team, but with the sport?
Well, I did a bit of soul searching the whole last season and talked to kind of the people that were really close to me, that, my family, and like I still cared for these guys on this team. Like I remember when I had that phone conversation with them saying, guys, I don't think I should play on this team anymore. Probably the first time I've ever cried in front of other guys before. I was in tears. I was, we'd gone through so many things together, and it was like really a challenge to say that. But that's what I felt. I joined a team that was probably 15th in Canada, but they were all like good friends of mine that I knew that it was going to be a different experience. We were going to really have that passion together. They were really driven. Maybe that's something refreshing that I needed. And I truly felt that, because I didn't want to leave these guys like high and dry. And I felt like if they had someone else on their team that could infuse some new energy, that it would be probably best for them as well. And I remember thinking like, what, this team I'm on, we're going to go from, like a serious dark horse to I think we can win the Olympics. And I think this will be one of the greatest challenges I've ever had, but I think it'd be one of the most rewarding experiences as well. I know no one probably gave us a sniff, and I remember picturing like, I'm going to play likely my old team in the final to get to the Olympics. And it's going to be an emotional game. And I just remember picturing it and really visualizing and mentally preparing for that moment all summer going into that season. And guess what happened? We played them in the semifinals.
Yeah.
And it was a very emotional game. I remember after the game, I had this knot in my stomach. I know that Mark and Ben did as well. And it was just really kind of awkward because these are guys you've really gone to battle with. And the tank was a little empty after that, I have to say, because we didn't play our best. Personally, I didn't play my best in that Olympic trials final. We came very, very far with that team to make it where we did. I think we surprised a lot of people. And looking back on it, I don't know if I would change anything. I don't like to live with regrets. But I think what might have helped that team is if we had taken, the summer off, if we'd taken like okay, let's just go our different ways. I'm going to go to the island and go fishing, do what I love to do. I don't want to do any more sponsor stuff. I don't want to go to any other events. I just want to go and relax and kind of clear my mind. I'm sure Ben and, Kevin would have probably just golfed all summer and been with their families. And I think if we had done that and just kind of taken some time away from each other, because, if you look at the stats of those trials, we were pretty much at the top of every position still. And I think if we could have just taken a break from each other and then came back refreshed, I think we could have won again. Not taking anything against that away from the Jacobs team, because they did something really amazing and special those trials as well, and they seem to be destined. But looking back on that, it would have been quite interesting if we had the wherewithal and the perception to say, listen, we need a break.
Benny said the exact same thing. He was like, we would just load up in Mark Kennedy's minivan and go to appearances and speeches, and we were superstars. And it was just tough to kind of reset.
Yeah, you betcha. Yeah, he knows. Ben, he'll surprise you. He comes across, maybe like full of brawn and full of, a little brash, but he's a smart fella. Don't let him fool you.
He introduced me to overpriced vodka when I was 20 years old. I think you did too, actually. You guys were like, Grey Goose is the way to go. And now I'm just a vodka snob for the rest of my life, thanks to you two.
Well, Brian Mudrick showed us that. He's a TSN analyst. His trick is you can have a few extra and you don't get a hangover with the old Grey Goose. So
yeah, that's what we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
From CBC Podcasts and The Fifth Estate, Brainwashed is a multi-part investigation into the CIA's experiments in mind control. From the Cold War and MKUltra to the so-called War on Terror, we learn about a psychiatrist who used his patients as human guinea pigs and what happens when the military and medicine collide. Listen to Brainwashed on the CBC Listen app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's fast forward to 2018 then. You win a second gold with Kaitlyn Lawes. I mean, how uniquely different was that from 2010?
Well, it was extremely different. Not only because it's a pretty new sport, a mixed double, so you're playing with one other team member of the opposite gender, but also the Olympics were in Korea, like this, opposite end of the world, totally different time change. And way different environment over there. I'd never played in an Asian event, like an Asian tournament or championship ever. So I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. But, it was definitely unique from the 2010 experience. The one thing I would say I missed from 2010 was when you're battling for 4 years and kind of really going to war and putting your blood, sweat, and tears in with a certain team. Winning together just really feels that satisfying, And with Kaitlyn, we played together for like a month.
I was there when you guys qualified at Portage la Prairie. It was like minus 45 out.
In Portage.
Horrible. And you guys did it.
Yeah, so it was it was a wild ride because we kind of got thrown there was teams that had played mixed doubles together in Canada for 4 to even 8 years together. And Kaitlyn and I were kind of thrown together. What we had going for us, though, was this. I would say Kaitlyn's one of the most driven, competitive women's curlers out there. I'm kind of like the men's version, like super driven and super competitive. And there was a bit of a chip on our shoulder because we didn't win in men's or women's. And, we had to we felt we were still at the top of our game and we had a great chance to go to the Olympics. And, things that Kevin Martin and our team learned over the years, Kaitlyn and I had to build that in like 2 weeks. Kaitlyn and I were literally, we were coming off a like disastrous loss where we gave up 4 points in the last end to lose by 1. And, it was easily like we could have entered self-destruct mode and just folded our tents, which usually happens after terrible losses like that. And we were like sitting down in dinner in Portage, and we had to like look each other in the eye and be like, okay, what went wrong? What do we have to do to bring the best out of each other and make sure that doesn't happen again? We're having these like frank conversations. And I love that about Caitlin, is she's able to do that. She doesn't beat her on the bush. It was really nice to be able to communicate with her like that, because we had to. We started 2-3, and if we lost one more game, we're out. And we had these tough conversations. We kind of do a U-turn and really start learning how to play better together. Next thing you know, we're in the final, and we're playing a formidable opponent in Brad Gushue and Val Sweeting, and we beat them. And then it was like, okay, all right, we've won Canada. We met you there, and it was like, okay, it was on. There was no more stress in our eyes. It was just like, okay, we got about a month to prepare, and let's enjoy this ride, and let's really work at doing our best and repping this Maple Leaf. So it's pretty cool.
I love how you say Caitlin's one of the most intense competitors because, well, number one, she is, but you are one of the most passionate competitors and athletes I have ever met. I mean, like lightning rod legend intensity on the ice. And I think people that don't even know you can probably see that, right? If you're a fan of curling, you're like, Johnny Moe can get after it when he needs to. Where does that come from?
I don't know. I have a very big, sports background growing up. Like my dad, was a big mentor and kind of someone I really looked up to. And he coached me in baseball. And our family was just competitive. Like my sister played soccer and basketball and volleyball, but she ended up choosing the basketball. So we were just a very competitive-minded family. Like even when we're playing cards and I don't know, it was fun, but at the same time, like I remember playing board games over Christmas where my sister's like, storming out of the room because she didn't win in Balderdash, like that's the type of family we come from. So it was kind of part of our pedigree. And I think that's, and I love that. Like nothing gets me going more in life than the thrill of a really great competitive game. Like whether it's slow pitch, flag football, whether it's bocce ball in the backyard, whether it's Beersby at the lake with your buddies, like I love a good competitive game. And I find over the years in curling, what gets me going the most is when I'm at a higher level, like the Brier, like a major championship. That's what gets my juices flowing, and that's when I can't wait to get on the ice. I had trouble, especially I'd say playing with Kevin Martin near the end, against some maybe not formidable opponents, the toughest opponents, and not a lot on the line. It was hard for me to get up for those games. I think
that was my problem too.
Right? Like it's tough to, and then you lose to these teams maybe you shouldn't have because your mindset isn't where it needs to be. But I got to say, and I'm still there. I love looking a guy right in the eye and saying, I'm going to beat you. And like, that's how I train. Like I train on my own a lot because I live in the mountains and don't have a lot of teammates around me. And I remember I'll be doing like chin-ups and I'm on my like 10th chin-up and I'm having trouble getting up. And I'm picturing like Ryan Fry. And if I don't get up for this 10th chin-up, he's over there in Toronto doing 12 chin-ups. And I'm like, I can't let this guy beat me. And
is it always Ryan Fry that you picture?
I've pictured, I'm playing with BJ Neufeld now, but I used to go toe to toe with him. So I pictured guys the top guys in their game. And now I have to picture Mark Kennedy. He used to be on my team, but I would say he's one of the best thirds in the game now, him and Mark Nichols. And I got to picture those guys, those are the best in the game. And that's who I have to picture beating because that's who I have to beat. And that's who, if we're going to win as a team, I have to outplay those guys. And I took a few years off playing with Kevin. We used to win 7 or 8 out of 10 games. And the last few years I was winning 5 out of 10 and it was just eating me up. And I felt that, I didn't want to keep playing the game of curling if I'm going to be winning 5 out of 10 games. It was tough on me. It was tough on my brain and my competitiveness. So, and at the same time, I was getting up. I'd put a lot on hold in life, like a family. I'm sure you've talked to a lot of athletes, probably yourself as well, where you put a lot on hold to do what you love to do. And I was like, okay, I'm in my mid 30s here. If I want to have a family, if I want to do other things in life, now's the time. So, that became more of a priority. And I was very lucky to meet a very beautiful and very understanding and wonderful woman at chef school, because I was kind of exploring a few other things and other passions that I loved. And it took a few years kind of off the men's game, stuck with mixed doubles because it was something you could do, in a little bit of a lesser role, quite a bit of a lesser role, but it still allowed me to do some other things that I wanted to do in life. And now I have 2 fantastic kids, and I'm able to make a comeback here with Team Cooey, who, as it turns out, Benny Hebes is on the team. He was kind of an integral part in recruiting me back on the squad. And there's not too many guys that come back, to play with, but Ben Hebert is one of them. And those guys on that team, I really think we have a great shot of. Maybe you don't want 4 guys like Ben Hebert and myself on a team, because there might be a little too much intensity and fire going on out there. A little too much, like, what's that, yang? But
yin and yang.
Yin and yang. But with Ben, it's kind of nice to know that there's someone just competitive out there, because it makes practices fun. We'll throw a lunch on the line sometimes, and it just makes practices a little more fun as well.
When does that competitive edge, though, and again, like legendary passion that you have, hinder you? Or are you at a stage of your career now where you think you've kind of figured it out and you can use it to your advantage?
I forget who said it, but someone very wise said that sometimes your biggest strength can also be your Achilles and be a detriment. And I feel that's the case. I think with everyone, what they have in their skill set that really can set them apart is something that can also, challenge them as well. And it definitely challenges myself. Like I've done a lot of mental training over the years, and I feel it's been very helpful. I would say I'm a bit more mellow now. I don't break as many brooms as I did when I was younger. I think it's just due to a lack of, I have a little less testosterone at 41 that I did when I was 20 and 25. So I feel like that probably is lower now, and that helps because it's saving me a lot of money on brooms these days.
I was going to say, you must be rich now.
Yeah, well, they make brooms a little bit tougher now. They make them out of carbon fiber, so they're harder to break over the knee. And I've realized that they're not even worth trying because your knee usually takes the brunt of it. So you're always learning as an athlete. And I'm looking forward to learning. I'm in a new position. I'm playing second with this team. So, maybe they recruited me because they felt that I still had strength to give and a lot of, I was one of the strongest sweepers out there. But I don't think that's the case. I think that there's other things that they may think that I can bring to the table. I'm in a new role. I got a lot to learn. And to me, that's like motivating. Motivation's key. From watching that, I'm sure you watched that Michael Jordan documentary.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm anything close to Michael Jordan, but there was a lot of similarities. When I heard him talking about some things like how he got motivated, I think he made some things up in his mind.
Okay, so I have to interrupt you, and I'm not being a very good host. But
good.
Literally, Ben Hebert compared you to Michael Jordan, making things up in your head to motivate you. He was like, that's kind of what John does.
Yeah, well, I need that, and I love that. And deep down, I actually do believe it. Like maybe to some other people, they're like, they don't get it. But, I'll find things in competitors that will bug me and will irk me or will, I feel like they've slighted me or my team. And I love that. And I probably letting out too many secrets here. Like when we used to play against Glenn Howard, and they used to always get on us for being on the ice too long and purposely leaving prints or doing things that they thought we were purposely doing. And they would get downright and I feel like they were doing that to kind of get in our heads. And I got to say, I loved every time they did that. I was like, boys, bring it on. Because every time you do that, it brings me up a level that I want to crush you that much more. And I loved it. And again, I'm probably letting out too many secrets, but I'm pretty late in my career now. I'm sure people have me figured out a bit by now, but I don't want to be friends on the ice. I want to hate. I don't want to like my opponent, because it's hard to want to beat your opponent when you like them. And I'm sure Ben or Mark would tell you the exact same thing.
I had Hebert, and I almost feel embarrassed that his name's come up like 15 million times, but he was on first season of this podcast, and he said, I never want to have too much perspective on the ice. And it took me back, it actually was jarring, because in my career, I kept looking for this perspective of okay, win or lose, I'm going to be fine. And it was actually really healthy to hear someone go, no, I want to win. And that's totally fine. I don't want to have the perspective that if I lose this game, life goes on. Because once I start thinking that way, I know my competitive edge is done. And that will stick with me, I think, till the rest of my life. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you guys are cut from the same cloth.
Hopefully I'm not going to make any enemies here, but I feel very similar to Ben. And I know that if Ben and I put our kids in sports and they were getting all these ribbons for being a participant and coming 7th out of 10, that ribbon wouldn't even make it in the car. It's, that's the way we grew up. It was, okay, here's the prize table. There's one thing on the top of that prize table that we all want, and it's that Nintendo Game Boy. I remember thinking that when I was 12 years old. There's grippers, there's cheesy prizes, but then there's this Nintendo Game Boy on the top of that table. And that's what I want to win with my team. But that's the way we were raised back then. And I find, today's day and age is a little softer. I'm not saying it's any better or any worse, but I'm proud and I'm happy to have come from that generation.
So you alluded to it. You said, you're back with a new team. Of course, that's Team Cooey. Kevin Cooey is the skip. I don't know him. Seems like a great guy. Seems like a beauty. But he also seems very, very mellow. So how is that going to mesh? You being so competitive and kind of outwardly large and you really take space, where I feel as though that is not really how he comes across.
Well, I think, remember going back to that yin and yang thing?
Yeah.
I think that, teams have to have some good balance like that. And I also have learned a lot over my career. I feel because Kevin and I actually played together before, and we were in different roles. I was a skip and he was third. And this was back when we were, young, and I was full of piss and vinegar. He didn't have as much as I did, but essentially, we're definitely, I'd say, more, we're veterans in the game now, and we've seen a lot. And I have a lot of respect for Kevin Cooey. I know he knows a lot about the game. I feel there's certain ways as a skip that he, you need to be kind of treated, or you need to, be able to have a certain chemistry with your team in order to thrive. And my role is different now. My role in the team is not to be, the guy that's going to have a ton of ideas all the time and really kind of I have a different role now. And it's, first of all, make a ton of shots and play 90% plus curling. That's the biggest thing I got to do. If I can do that, and we can all focus on doing that as a team, the results are mostly going to take care of themselves. But and I got to give a lot of credit to, I know that Kevin Cooey's worked with John Dunn. He's a sports psychologist and has kind of been his coach. And now I've been fortunate enough to work with John Dunn, starting this season. And I know how much of an positive influence he can be. And he's helped me kind of understand the new role and kind of the new perspective that I want to have on the team. And I'm going to be, I'm looking forward to that challenge of learning what I need to do to get the best out of my teammates. To me, that's what I'm most proud of in my career. Is I've had some different teammates, but I think a lot of people could say with some of these teams, we've really maxed out or reached our full potential. It's interesting because being in 2018 at those Olympics in mixed doubles, I was able to watch the men's team, And there's certain things like I saw where I was like, man, if only they were doing this. I wish I could just be this like unbiased guy that could go in the change room and be like, hey, if we tried this, or I'm not saying that would have solved anything, but there's certain things I saw out there that I really feel that may have helped make a difference. And I think that's one of the reasons they may have brought me on this year. And I'm looking forward to doing that in a respectful and mature way that is able to kind of get the best out of the guys.
You get the best out of your friends too, bud. Like, I will tell you that. You've curled for the last, you're 41, so 40 years. Like, I'm just going to assume you started
right out of the
rocks
womb, man.
Right out of the womb. Right out of the womb.
Yeah.
And the curling season, I mean, right now we're in COVID, so we're all very uncomfortable and burnt out from just the situation, as much as we're trying to be positive. Even in the best of times, the curling season is incredibly long. How do you unplug from the sport?
As much as I love curling and love going to different parts of the world and meeting new people and being able to compete against the best, I love I think it's only 4 months off we get now, because usually this season ends in May and starts up again in September. But those are my favorite months. I went and picked up my son from daycare and on my bike today, and it was like an hour and a half round trip. But I've never felt better, like having him laugh the whole way back on the bike and just feeling like I was on top of the world by the time I got home. Like, those are new joys I have in my life that I never, really knew about a few years ago. But my off season is kind of my time to diffuse. I'm not a big advocate of playing a sport year round. I think that really promotes burnout and can be tough for longevity of a career. So I love doing things. I love doing things outdoors. I have a little fishing camp in just right off Vancouver Island in Victoria, off in Souk actually, and I go there every summer and I fish for salmon and halibut, and it's like my super happy place. Like, I live in Canmore now. It's a place I've chosen to live. Many people in the world pay lots of money to come to Canmore just to visit and Banff, and I'm able to live here. I'm pretty much full time. So, and what's been interesting is during these last few months of COVID, it's been a struggle. I haven't met too many people, that wouldn't admit there's been some times where they've really had some tense moments with their partners, with their family, with themselves mentally. We're social beings as humans, and the fact that we haven't been able to be like that of late is really taking its toll on myself, and I'm sure many others. This is sounding like this is going to be a new normal for many months or maybe even many years. And I think we have to start really addressing what we can do to help each other out and address it. It's okay to feel stressed out and like you're really having some tense moments with your family, and you just sometimes need a break. And because I know people feel like that. I have. And if we don't start addressing and feeling like, we're alone in this, then there's going to be some, possibly some more extreme negative impacts of this COVID. And I just, one thing that we've been doing that I have to say has been vital is just connecting with the outdoors and getting outside. And I see it in my son, if he's inside too much during the day, he gets frustrated, and he has like little meltdowns, and then we get frustrated as parents, and we're like, what are we doing wrong? And hopefully that's something that we can, speak openly about in the future.
Certainly, I've felt the exact same way. It's just tough. Like, it's just an uncomfortable time, and it's hard to be motivated. And I think everyone's just getting a little bit burnt out. So I do appreciate you taking the time, though, because anytime I connect with a friend with a beauty such as yourself, I know that I feel better. And God, maybe I should just go out to that little fishing hut you got, because
Come on out. I love hosting friends out there, and I got to say I love listening to you, Anna, because you're always you provide a great perspective, and it's by being able to connect with these other athletes that I think a lot of Canadians and fans appreciate hearing.
Johnny, Seriously, it's been too long, buddy. So nice to see your face. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're very busy with 2 young ones, and you're a firefighter, frontline worker. I just appreciate everything you stand for. So it's been a pleasure connecting with you, and thank you for bettering my life and introducing me to Grey Goose vodka as well.
Right on. Well, next time we see you, we'll have one together, okay?
John Morris was at home in lovely Canmore, Alberta, and I recorded our chat from my place here in Toronto. Players Own Voice podcast is a CBC Sports production. Social media, #Players Own Voice. Drop me a line anytime on anything social. I'm Anna Stasher. David Giddens is our producer. Olivia Pasquarelli edits for us. If you like what you hear, a rating at iTunes sure helps us. Thanks for listening, and let's keep those COVID numbers down. Peace.
Love CBC podcasts? Help us make them better. Take our CBC Podcast listener survey now at cbc.ca/podcasts. The quick survey will help us improve your favorite CBC podcasts. cbc.ca/podcasts.